Erica, I'm new to Canada and I'm very curious about maple syrup. So why don't you tell me about it? Like what is it and how you make it?
Sure. Well, first, maple syrup comes from maple trees. There's 7 different types of maple trees, but the 2 that we use to get maple syrup from are the sugar maple and the black maple. So this is our pretend sugar maple example tree here. So what people used to do is they would take a hand drill like this called an auger. People would drill a hole like that in the tree, and then once there was a hole, they'd take something like this called a spile, and they'd put it in the tree. But today, we use ones like this. This is a metal spile, and this goes into the tree, and the sap comes out here. So that's great. So now that's strong enough to hang your bucket off. And if this is a real tree, like the one over here, we can go see the sap will come out and collect in this bucket. So you can see the sap in this cauldron is very clear. But once the water boils down, what we would do is move the sap from here to the second cauldron. Once it's boiled down more, so there's less and less water each time, we'd go to here. So here you can see it's very dark.
So after this, it's ready to be used?
Yeah, we'd have to do this for quite a while, and then it would get to the syrupy stage. Okay, Gerard, here's some maple syrup for you to try. There you go.
I've tried it with tea, but this is the first time I tried pure maple syrup.
Straight?
It's so sweet.
In the Victorian era in what is now Southern Ontario, basically the GTA, newspapermen or printers would have been purchasing newspapers from other communities, usually larger communities, and they would then copy articles from those other newspapers. They would choose articles that they think would either apply to their readers, so help increase their readership, or things that would conform to their own political or moral beliefs.
So they choose the articles from the big papers, and what's the next step?
Once a printer has selected the articles that they're going to set in type, they've got to actually set that article in type. Each case of type has a format, just like this. The format is always the same, and that allows a compositor to set one column every 10 hours. What they're doing is taking a letter, one letter at a time, and placing that letter in their compositor's stick upside down. They never actually have to look at the letter because the case has a consistent format.
So how long does it take for a paper like this to be printed?
For a single-page newspaper, it takes about 5 days' work. That's about 50 hours of work. In the 1860s, it's common for people to work a 6-day work week, 10 hours a day. 5 days of their work will be setting type, and on the 6th day, they'll print their newspaper. Here we have the bed of the printing press with an engraving, and what you're going to do is coat the surface of the engraving with ink. Now that the printing press has been inked, we've got to put a piece of paper down on top. We've got to close the tympan and roll the bed of the printing press underneath the platen. And there's a nice print.
Dances were often held in town halls of course being one of the few public spaces in a rural Victorian community. Contra dances, always on the list, very, very popular. Contra, of course, meaning you're dancing opposite your partner, the Sir Roger de Coverley. Always very popular at a dance because it was very, very simple and meant to include the young, old, and everyone in between, so it gave everyone a chance to dance before they went home.
It's important for newcomers to connect to their city. And I must say, Gerard, you really pulled off your Victorian dancing skills. It must have been great to learn about Toronto's old traditions.
Indeed, it was a very amazing experience, having fun dancing and making my favorite Canadian staple, maple syrup.
Well, I've got to get there myself. But before that, let's go to modern-day Toronto at the Metro Hall, where they hosted the Newcomer Business Startup Forum.